Did you inherit $1 million from your grandparent, or are you about to become wealthy from someone else's hard work? If you say yes to these questions, this show is not for you. You, the hardworking, committed, and ambitious professional who have a 9-to-5 corporate job or a 12-hour shift worker keeping the assembly line running. Perhaps you run your gig as a freelancer, or maybe you run a small business. You are in the right place. Welcome to the Career Evangelist Podcast, where you get your weekly tips, ideas, strategies, and inspiration to find purpose in what you do so you can build a career you are passionate about and live a fulfilled life. Here is your host, Bola Alabi.
Welcome to the Career Evangelist Podcast. Today, we have the incredible honor of hosting Dr. Bill Coplin, a distinguished educator and advisor whose career spans over 6 decades. Dr. Coplin is the founder and professor of the highly successful undergraduate policy studies major at Syracuse University. Dr. Coplin's commitment to helping students succeed and do good in the world is truly inspiring. He has mentored over 40,000 individuals of all ages, guiding them with his sense of humor and straightforward advice on achieving success, whether with or without a college degree. Today, we are going to be delving into his wealth of knowledge to uncover strategies for career success and practical tips for navigating the professional world. Dr. Coplin, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
That's awesome. So this is the first that we are going to be having a college professor with us. And I'm excited about this. So, Dr. Coplin, can you let us know you? Who is Dr. Bill Coplin?
Well, I've been teaching for 60 years. I graduated with a PhD from American University in International Relations after a BA in Social Sciences from Johns Hopkins. Then I found when I was a graduate student getting my PhD, I loved teaching. And so I decided to become a college professor, not really understanding that the number one job of most college professors is to research and publish. Number two job is to teach.
Yeah.
Now, after I got my full professor and I published a lot of stuff, I devoted all my time to teaching my own students and then having my students go out in the high schools and teach high school kids. Mm-hmm. So high school and college is the place where students should develop professional habits and skills. And our system doesn't have that as its top priority. I mean, it varies, but in general, I would say 90% of all the institutions are more concerned with grades, making little scholars out of students. And really, you mentioned this is the first time you have a college professor. Most college professors are not good career advisors unless they're advising how to get tenure to be another professor, which is a very small percent of people. Yes. So from the beginning, my goal is I want everybody to do well and do good and have the skills to do it. Mm-hmm. And the philosophy behind my view is you can only do that through experience and skill development by focusing on, I've got to get better at X, whatever X is, and I have a list of 10 skill sets and 38 skills, which everybody pretty much shares, like time management and getting along with people. These are skills that we know, but the school systems have not been able to get students to develop those skills as well as they should. And the way you develop skills is through practice, not through exams. That doesn't work. It's through practice. And so I have undergraduate TAs who went through a course who then coach other undergraduates, because the practice takes time and human effort. But I'm going down a rat hole right now, so I'll stop that. Go ahead.
No, I like where you are leading us to, but the way my job is to, simplify it so that our listeners, they can benefit from this conversation. I like what you said. You said professional habits and skills should be developed at high school. I have a daughter who is in high school right now, and she's getting ready to go to college. And I want to hear from you, what are some skills, some key skills that students need to develop to succeed in today's job market?
Okay. The first and most important skill you're talking about, like your daughter and undergraduate, is what I call taking responsibility. That is, my education is dependent on me. I have to decide what I want, and then I have to make sure I get it. And time management is probably the biggest problem for most students.
Yeah.
Because they're overloaded with all this stuff to do. And if they're grade conscious, then they're overloaded on the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I won't go into student government because I need the time to study to get an A in physics. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad decision, but it is a decision. Right. And you realize what you're giving up. And what you would learn in student government or on the yearbook committee
right.
would be better professional development than getting an A in physics. So, but the top students are so overwhelmed by this rat race that they've developed with what's the best college to go to, and can I have a 4.0, and I got to go to law school, and so I better do well here, and they miss their education, and their operational strategy is maximum grade with the minimum amount of work. How can I get all A's and still have a life? And the result is they process information, they do whatever they do, but they're really not engaged. That's like their job, to get an A and do it as efficiently as possible. So they can go after school and be in a theater group where actually they learn more professional skills in a theater group than they do in the class.
Yeah.
Because running, like, even if you're the person who moves the furniture around, you're learning how to take orders and listen and have these skills. So my advice is you have to have career and skills in your brain, and you have to look through it for both classroom work and experience. There are some teachers that have project management type approaches, and that's good, but there's too few of them. You walk around a high school where I've visited lots of high schools, and you look in a classroom, they're all bored and they're all, not happy. Then you walk in the library and there's 5 of them writing some kind of project paper, and they're all excited, and they are engaged. Not engaged in the classroom, are engaged in a project-based course or in some kind of extracurricular thing. Yeah. So, and the problem is the students are not, first of all, the school's telling them get good grades. The colleges are telling them get good grades. Their parents are telling them to get good grades. The parents are missing the point. You stop it. You should stop that. Okay, get below a B, that's a problem. But between an A and a B, that's not a problem.
Okay.
So you won't get into Harvard, you'll get in somewhere else. So what's the difference? It doesn't make any difference anyway. So the incentives are wrong for the student. So they have to overcome that and realize skills. What skill am I getting from this? And make decisions based on where they're weak. One of my sayings is Excel is life. Well, if you look at the high schools, they don't really focus on Excel too much. I mean, they have Google Sheets, which are like Excel. It's not Excel, but they're not really developed. They should come out of high school being able to make graphs and trend lines and also to use Excel as a management tool. But where are they going to learn that? And the school, the teachers know this. It's the administrators who know it but can't say it. And then it's the state boards that have standards which are really quite irrelevant to becoming a professional. Okay. Quite irrelevant. I took my 38 skills. I had somebody look at it and compare it to the New York State standards. 80% of my skills are not in the standards. Put it another way, Excel should be a graduation requirement. It's not even taught. But by the way, neither is typing taught anymore. When I went to school, you had a class on typing. Now they don't have anything on typing. And some of the kids are typing with their finger like that, pointed, like they were doing a smartphone. Well, how are they going to write term papers and do their work if they can't type? When we do studies of typing in school, they're typing at 18 words a minute. And it doesn't take long. How can they get to 35? Practice. Make up your mind, I'm going to type better. I mean, that's the entire message.
Yeah.
Make a commitment and do it, practice.
Okay. So yeah, I think you've said a lot of things, but what you are trying to communicate with us is that while students should not fall below a B grade, you are not saying people should not pay attention to their academics, but you are also advocating that people should develop practical skills that will help them maybe after their college education. So for me, I want to hear more. What are some of those skills that you think students need to develop, especially maybe in high school or in college? And I know you mentioned Excel. What are other skills that you think?
Okay, so very important is verbal communication.
Communication, okay.
Verbal and written.
Okay.
So what do the schools do about verbal communication? Almost nothing. Or they have kids make presentations to the class. Well, that's not bad, but the 95% of all your communications are one-on-one. And you need to practice that. And because you're going to have a job interview, how are you going to get your job if you can't talk? So one-on-one is really important. Staying well is important. Physical things, managing your time so you don't spend all night up. And of course, if you're addicted to video games, you're already starting to lose it. Yeah. So we've got to avoid those things. Writing, the problem with the writing you're going to do in the real world is not writing term papers and writing essays. But the writing people teach you how to write term papers. This is in college. The colleges say we're going to teach you how to write for a discipline. How about teaching you to write for other people? Never anywhere. The other thing they do in college when they're teaching writing is they're teaching express yourself. Okay. Yes, writing is a way to express yourself. But when you're in the real world, you don't write to express yourself. You write to communicate an idea or a job. So my students write short things and use bullets. But when they come out of freshman English, they're writing long paragraphs that are pretty much incomprehensible. So they're not trained to write in a professional way. Then working with people is so important. And I'm a big fan of Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. We actually run Dale Carnegie exercises using his 30 principles. If the kids, my father wouldn't, here's a speech they would get. I went up and the flight attendant said I couldn't get on the plane because it's full. And they had to bump me off. And I said to the flight attendant, your job is really tough. I don't want to make it hard on you. I understand completely. But is it possible I could have a chance to get on? And is there some way to do it? And then the flight attendant immediately, because she's not being yelled at, not having a temper tantrum from him, will want to help. And in this story, I'm telling you, my students have told that has happened to them, that they've used Carnegie principles of don't condemn, complain, or criticize. So that's working directly with people. Then there's a whole set of how do you influence people, which is different than working directly. Obviously, you got to have your own good relationships, but how can you be a manager? Man, I tell my students, when you get a job interview, the interviewer's thinking, I know we're hiring this person to enter data, but could he or she eventually manage all the data analysts, enters? They're always looking for management personnel. Why? Because they want to do less, or they want to get that out of their way. And then the other thing that I emphasize is sales. The students don't like sales because it has a sort of a dirty name. It's manipulation. And my mantra is do well and do good. And they want to know, well, how can you do good and be a salesman, a salesperson? And I say, well, if you're selling used cars, which is usually viewed as not a good salesperson, and somebody comes in who's poor, and you get them a good car at a price they can afford, you've helped that people. You've done good. Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing is, even if you don't want to sell, you have to sell. Because wherever you go in your job, you will be selling yourself and ideas.
Yeah.
Then there's a whole set of gathering information. I don't know. You want me to keep? I've got like 3 more categories, or you want me to?
Let's take a pause. I want to double click on what you said about influencing people. And this time around, I'm thinking about someone that is interviewing for a managerial position. What are some ideas that you can share with us on how to show that you have that management qualities or leadership qualities, so to speak?
Okay, let me say, first of all, whenever you're in an interview, don't tell people what you're good at. Tell them the experiences you have that prove you're good at it. So in this case, I like to get a lot of college students to work in food services and become supervisors. Mm-hmm. Because once the student says to the interviewer, I was a food supervisor running meals and whatever at Syracuse University, that interviewer is going to say, management talent. Yeah. So it's what experience you've had. And that means whatever you're doing anywhere in your life, try to get to a management position. And I tell a story about a student who was 18, worked as a fryer at McDonald's. And right away, they made her trainer of fryers. Then they made her assistant manager. And when she was 19, the corporate, which owned 38 McDonald's, offered her $70,000 to become part of their corporate team because she had demonstrated at McDonald's that she can manage. And the students don't think about management as an important step. Well, when you go up the food chain, you're going to have to do management. You're not going to go up because you enter tater faster. You're going to be managed. So that's the way, I think, to demonstrate everything by your experiences. And then when you get a job, number one goal is to make your supervisor like you. That's the number one goal.
Okay.
And because if your supervisor likes you, and this applies all the way from McDonald's to top corporate positions.
Right.
I have a student who the supervisor, she had so many skills the supervisor needed. When the supervisor quit his job at JP Morgan and went to a different financial institution, he took her with him.
Oh.
And then she eventually left because she wanted to do good more, but that's beside the point. So that's how you move up. And that's true no matter how old you are and what job you're in. Your boss wants you to be with them, and if it's possible. Now, what about if you get in a situation with a boss that's doesn't seem to like you too much? I think there's two things. There's just something wrong with you, or there's something wrong with your boss. Do not assume there's something wrong with the boss.
Okay.
Because it could be something wrong with you. So then you need to reflect.
Okay.
And talk to the boss. But if the boss is a jerk, I mean, I hear it from my younger alums. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the boss is a jerk, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, and I said, well, maybe the boss is a jerk, maybe you're a jerk. So, but once then you got to get away from the boss if it's not your fault. Or find the boss you get along with.
So what do you do if you don't get along with your boss? What are some?
Well, I think you could talk. You can talk to HR. It's better if you try and confront your boss, I think. It's very complicated, so I don't want to make too many generalizations here. It's complicated. You'll have to see if you can, and ask other people. The other thing is you should follow the Dale Carnegie principle of don't complain, criticize, or condemn. So do not do that with your workmates.
Yeah.
Always be positive. Never, ever, ever start whining and complaining, because that's going to come back and bite you. First thing is your peers are going to say, boy, he's critical. Wonder what he thinks of me. And then, so just keep your mouth shut. But after a while, if other people are complaining or other things, you say, well, what do you think we should do? Try and ask. It's very complicated. But in corporate world, I mean, they have a lot of HR people, and they try and help. And also in today's world, because there's so much turnover, corporations don't like losing people. So you sort of have an advantage. But if if nobody likes you, then it's probably you.
Yeah, that's
So.
No, that's good, Dr. Coplin. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, let's talk about how students can stand out in a competitive job market. What are some areas that you think students need to focus on if they want to stand out?
Okay, number one, they have to have the skill base and demonstrate skills. That's why they're in college. And the skills are both soft skills, like I've been talking about, but also hard skills, data analysis, Excel, being able to, use the computer well, research well, find stuff. My best students, I'll say something, and while I'm babbling, I didn't know it. They're working on Google, and they say, "Oh, well, here's a URL. Go to that." Mm-hmm. That's who you want to be. You want to be, king of the URLs, king and queen of the URLs through Google. And now that you got AI, you just be good at AI, because you can, again, while they're babbling, you just put in a question, and it'll give you an answer. So computer applications are extremely important, and you can't ignore them. I'm old. I can ignore them. I got students who will do it for me. But if you're, a normal person, you need to do that, and you might not like doing it. And that's something you can really develop in college. So the other thing is networking, which I hate because it creates discrimination and it.
I like the fact that you are mentioning networking because I think it's important. So I need
very important.
To
and that's another reason why in college you should be doing extracurricular activities. You're not going to be making a lot of friends with your classmates, your academic classmates. You're going to be making friends with others. I mean, you might with your academic classmates, but you need to have a network to get job leads, to have standing. One of the things that I found is any president of a sorority or a fraternity automatically appeals to employers. I mean, and if you think about president of a sorority has to deal with national sorority people who are driving them crazy, could have a budget of $1 million, the building and all that other stuff, has to worry about meals, and then has the university aggravating them. Plus, not just to mention the members of the fraternity or sorority who are doing bad things, right? And you're problem solving. I mean, think about that job. That's like being a CEO. It's really like being a CEO of a company. And the employers know this, and I've been watching this. Well, any president of a fraternity or sorority, I know I don't have to worry about it. They're going to get a job, and they don't come to me too much either, because they have so many things out there. And the networking is very important if you have the skills. Because nobody's going to want to push you forward if you're going to screw up. So you have to have the skills. It means they have to respect you. You have to respect them, and that gets back to Dale Carnegie, where you care about them, they care about you. So it's all interconnected. So I think a lot of things that annoy me is, well, I'm going to transfer to Cornell. Why? Well, I'll have better contacts there. Okay, you know what? They're right. And if you're at Cornell, you should transfer to Harvard. You're right. But what about if you can't? Number one, what's the cost? And it means you don't think you're good enough to make friends and succeed at SUNY Buffalo. When you probably are,
right?
But when a kid tells me that, I'm saying to myself, yeah, I'm not talking to this kid anymore, because you can't change their mind. It's probably driven by their parents, and it's not untrue. It's not untrue. You get better networks the richer the school you go to. It's true. But how much better and what's the cost? You're not doomed. Then so I think the networks and you can also networking with the administrators of the college. If you're talking about being in college, that's a good thing. The faculty, unless you're going into academic things, they're not very helpful because they don't have the connections. They don't even know what jobs are out there. I think. It depends if the faculty's background and other kinds of things, but by networking with your peers and some of the leadership administrative groups in the university is a good idea.
Okay. So, Dr. Coplin, as we are wrapping up on this episode, I want you to give your advice to students who are uncertain about their career paths. Maybe they are not sure what to do or how to make their career decision. What advice do you have for them?
That's a very good question, because half of them or three-quarters of them start with me that way. And I say, would you walk around a swimming pool or would you jump into a swimming pool? Well, the obvious answer is you jump into the swimming pool. Are you going to sit and decide what's a really good career path? Are you going to get any job or any internship, regardless of whether you think it's going to work out or not? And that's the answer. Get started somewhere. Start right away. This is why in college you should do things. Work for the bookstore. Bookstore manager told me, yeah, my student's working, and he didn't know what to do or anything. Well, now he's going to go work for some publisher because of the bookstore connection. So if you jump in and do something, rather than I have to find what I'm interested in. You don't even know what you're interested in. What are you talking about? Stop it. How can you know what you're interested in if you never did anything?
All right.
Right. So my advice is, especially when you're starting out, is just take any job or internship, because that will lead to something else. So I have a student who worked for a staffing company in San Francisco. They put her as a data enterer in Charles Schwab. Well, as soon as she was in there, the supervisor saw how hard working she was and promoted her. And by the time she left there, she was on a career path in Charles Schwab, a professional upward career path, even though she started as a data inputter.
Yeah.
So don't think any job is not good enough for you. Any job is good enough for you. But I've had, here's a tip. I can't get an internship. Well, why not? Well, I've been looking. I said, have you applied? Well, not yet. I said, oh, you couldn't find a perfect internship to apply to? Is that what you're telling me? So stop that and just apply and get something somewhere. Okay. And then it builds. Then you have a base on your resume for the next internship, which will be maybe a little better. Okay. So that's my advice, is do it.
Just do it. Thank you.
Just do it.
Dr. Coplin, you said jump in and figure it out. It's been awesome having you and learning from you on this episode. We appreciate your time, Dr. Coplin. And I'm sure my listeners, they will find this very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.